Get strong.
In this video, we'll talk about user interface design principles and how you can apply them to your own work. Whether you are a beginner or an experienced designer, these principles will help you create beautiful works and user-friendly interfaces. So sit back, relax, and let me show you everything you need to know about user interface design principles. User interface design is the literal aesthetic design of the look and feel of a product. The product here could be an app or a website. In the digital world, design is more than just a shiny surface treatment to make an app or website look good. Thoughtful user interface design improves digital product experiences, enhancing usability, accessibility, and inclusion for global users. Successful user interface design allows users to easily navigate from one screen to the next, hitting all the right visual touchpoints along the way. So what are UI design principles? User interface design principles are the principles that user interface designers use to ensure a fluid, logical, and enjoyable user interface experience. Is design that users can understand, prediction, and control. User interface design principles 1. Hierarchy. Have you ever encountered a web page that was so busy with various design elements that you had no idea where to even begin to look? If you struggle to find focus on a screen, it's likely that the layout is missing a clear visual hierarchy. The page's visual hierarchy controls the delivery of information from the system to the end user. It lets users know where to focus their attention. The visual hierarchy of a 2D display refers to the organization of the design elements on the page so that the eye is guided to consume each design element in the order of intended importance. Visual hierarchy can be created using 1. Color and contrasts, 2. Scale, 3. Grouping, proximity, and common regions. 1. Color and contrast. Good visual design uses color or contrast to create visual hierarchy on the page. Applying color to a design makes some elements appear to advance and others to recede, and, thus, determines what grabs our attention and the importance we assign to various design elements. It's not the actual color of an element that creates the hierarchy, but rather the contrast in value and saturation between the element and the context in which it appears. Designers often also use type contrast to indicate hierarchy, signaling importance with a special font treatment. Typefaces with heavy weight, like bold, stand out against light-weighted or regular typefaces. Words styled differently than the surrounding text also attract attention. 2. Scale. The principle of scale is key in creating visual hierarchy in a design. Bigger elements stand out more and attract users' attention, so size can be used as a marker for importance. 3. Grouping, proximity, and common regions. Implicit and explicit groupings help us see the bones or the structure of a page and allow us to direct attention to those areas of the screen that are likely to be relevant to our goal. Without groupings, it would be a lot more difficult to understand where standard areas such as navigation, content, ads are, and thus it would be harder to figure out where to direct attention and which areas can be safely ignored. For example, once users identify a right rail group, they may ignore it due to its association with ads, an instance of banner blindness. Grouping is usually conveyed implicitly through proximity, and the use of white space, or explicitly through enclosure. Before beginning a design, take a step back from the visuals and define the hierarchy of the content and the key point you want the user to take away. Once you establish that hierarchy, focus on applying variations in color and contrast, scale, or grouping. After designing with visual hierarchy in mind, step back and see if the design reads as you intended it by testing with target users. When the page's visual hierarchy accurately reflects the importance of different design elements, users easily understand it and can successfully complete tasks, thus gaining trust in the design and the brand. User interface design principles 2. Progressive disclosure. Interaction designers face a dilemma. Users want power, features, and enough options to handle all of their special needs. Everybody is a special case somehow. For example, Who wants line numbers in a word processor? Millions of users. That's who, including most big law firms. Users want simplicity. They don't have time to learn a profusion of features in enough depth to select the few that are optimal for their needs. Progressive disclosure is one of the best ways to satisfy both of these conflicting requirements. It's a simple yet powerful idea. Initially, show users only a few of the most important options. Offer a larger set of specialized options upon request. Disclose these secondary features only if a user asks for them, meaning that most users can proceed with their tasks without worrying about this added complexity. Usability criteria for progressive disclosure. Simple as the concept may seem, there are two things you must get right when designing for progressive disclosure. You must get the right split between initial and secondary features. You have to disclose everything that users frequently need up front, so that they have to progress to the secondary display only on rare occasions. Conversely, the primary list can't contain too many options or you'll fail to sufficiently focus users' attention on truly important issues. Finally, the initial display can't contain confusing features or you'll slow down user performance. It must be obvious how users progress from the primary to the secondary disclosure levels. First, make the mechanics of this operation simple. For a website, follow the guidelines for visualizing links. For an application, place the Advanced Features button in a clearly visible spot. Second, label the button or link in a way that sets clear expectations for what users will find when they progress to the next level. In other words, the progression should have strong information sent. User Interface Design Principles 3. Consistency. As you design the user interface, it is important to keep in mind the interactions that take place between the human cognition and the screen you're designing for. Making things easier for your users means not forcing them to learn new representations or toolsets for each task. Reducing the length of the thinking process by eliminating confusion is also a sure bet when it comes to improving user experience. Think about the websites and applications you use. They all rely on well-established conventions. Blue underlined text is clickable. The shopping cart icon shows the items you plan to purchase. The site logo is in the top left corner. A magnifier glass icon stands for search. These are all examples of conventions that are used all the time in digital products and that make users' lives easier. Advocating for consistency and standards may seem like we're pushing for all applications to look and act the same, but that's not the case. Rather, when websites and applications adhere to standards, users know what to expect, learnability is increased, and confusion is reduced. 5 ways you can achieve consistency in your work. There are many aspects to achieving consistency within your user interface. Here are 5 things you can look at to improve consistency in your designs. 1. Your choice of language. The language you use in both marketing copy as well as the wording used throughout the user flow can not only influence your user's perception of your product, but also be a point of confusion when you use different terminology to represent the same thing. This concerns not only in the terms you choose but also the tone in which you convey your message. Scaring your user with a serious and threatening error message when they're browsing an e-commerce site that exhibits an overall friendly tone will be sure to kill an otherwise good user experience. For instance. 2. Apply UI elements as they are originally defined. UI elements that are commonly used, such as message windows, menu bars, icons, scroll bars, and radio buttons, are graphic elements that are typically consistent and have representations that are widely understood by users. For instance, radio buttons are meant to be used when there is only one option allowed. Checkboxes, on the other hand, should be used only when the user is allowed more than one option. 3. Consider various well-established conventions when deciding on layout. It is certainly debatable whether a designer should copy how other people lay out their websites or apps. However, when you design with the user's perspective and cognition in mind, it is important to understand that humans have a strong memory for where things are visually located on the screen. You should leverage this characteristic by reserving commonly used locations for various graphical elements such as having the logo on the top left, search field on the top right, exit icon on the top right, etc. 4. Design for your users' expectations. Make sure you have the features and functionalities users would expect to see on your site. For example, an airline site should have a ticket booking system, while a music sharing site should have a media player. 5. Create consistent visual elements throughout your site. Make sure visual elements are consistent throughout your site. The content, the UI elements, fonts, backgrounds, and colors should be in harmony and feel consistent at every touch point. Remember that designing something against conventions will add to your user's cognitive load. You'll want to do this only if it's absolutely necessary to the task or will improve efficiency. In most cases, maintaining consistency and meeting user expectations will outweigh breaking a convention. User Interface Design Principles 4. Contrast. What is contrast? In simple terms, contrast is a noticeable difference between elements with comparable features, like light and dark, thick and thin, pastel and neon, and so on. By creating contrast, you can draw attention to certain areas and make your site more dynamic and visually appealing. Why is contrast important in web design? The main goal of using contrast in design is to highlight the peculiarities of certain objects by distinguishing them from each other. It's a great instrument to reach new customers and enhance your business, as contrasts are often pleasant and easily recognizable to the human eye. Types of contrast in UI design. While contrasting UI design can increase audience engagement and enhance the overall reputation of a product, no wonder there are many types of contrast used in design, which helps make the user experience seamless and intuitive. 1. Color contrast. Color contrast is a powerful tool in design that is used to create visual interest and emphasis. By experimenting with different color combinations, hues, and temperatures, you can add some depth and variety to your designs, along with accessibility and readability. 2. Size contrast. Size contrast helps create hierarchy, structure, and visual balance, allowing designers to communicate their message strongly and effectively. 3. Shape contrast. The human eye is naturally drawn to differences, so using unusual and contrasting shapes can make a certain element stand out and be effortlessly noticed. 4. Positional contrast. Creating contrast in positioning is a powerful way to build a hierarchy of elements and emphasize the importance of certain details in a design. Here, designers can use such positioning techniques as a specific placement of elements on the page to show how different and essential they are. If you, for example, position a particular group of objects far away from the other ones, it will free up more space and thus capture more attention. 5. Texture contrast. Texture contrast refers to the difference between two or more textures within a design, which is used to evoke emotions and convey a website's mood. Smooth and organic textures, for instance, can create a sense of warmth and comfort, while rough and modern ones give a feeling of sophistication and elegance. 6. Directional contrast. The concept of directional contrast involves the use of opposing vertical and horizontal lines and angles to create a sense of movement and dynamic energy within the design. 7. Element contrast. In design, elements are the basic building blocks used to create visual compositions and express different concepts. To conjure effective and impactful artworks, designers have plenty of instruments in stock, such as shapes, lines, colors, texture, value, and typography. 8. Space contrast. Creating contrast in space by placing elements far away from each other can also help to draw attention and evoke feelings of hierarchy or importance in the design. Such an empty space around the web content is called negative space or white space. It plays a crucial role in creating visual harmony, structure, and great user experience. We analyze several types of contrast that designers can utilize in their work, including color, texture, shape, space, direction, and position. If you decide to work with these contrast techniques, it's important to strike a balance between too little and too much, as too little contrast can result in a bland design, while too much may provoke visual overload and navigation difficulties. User Interface Design Principles 5. Proximity. The principle of proximity states that items close together are likely to be perceived as part of the same group, sharing similar functionality or traits. This principle can help you improve your user interface design by creating clear and coherent layouts, reducing cognitive load, and enhancing usability. In this article, you will learn how to apply the principle of proximity in your design projects and see some examples of good and bad practices. Why proximity matters. Proximity is one of the most basic and powerful ways to organize visual information and communicate meaning. When you use proximity effectively, you can create a sense of order, hierarchy, and structure in your interface. You can also guide the user's attention, focus, and navigation by grouping related elements and separating unrelated ones. Proximity can help you avoid clutter, confusion, and ambiguity in your design. How to use proximity in UI design. To use proximity in your UI design, you must consider alignment, spacing, and grouping. Alignment means arranging elements along a common edge or axis, while spacing refers to the amount of distance between elements. Grouping is when you cluster elements that share a common function, feature, or category. Here are some tips to use proximity in your UI design. Consistently align elements and use grids or guides for a balanced and harmonious layout. Make sure to leave adequate spacing between elements to create contrast and separation. Too much or too little spacing can make your design look cramped or sparse. Group elements that belong together and create clear boundaries or white space around them. Incorporate visual cues such as color, shape, size, or typography to reinforce the grouping. Lastly, use proximity to create logical and intuitive navigation by placing elements that are frequently used or related near each other for easy access and interaction. Examples of good and bad proximity. To emphasize the importance and effect of proximity in UI design, let's look at some examples of good and bad practices. For instance, Embark uses proximity to form a clear and user-friendly interface. It lines up elements precisely and applies consistent spacing to create a grid-like layout. Additionally, it clusters elements that are related to the user's search, such as filters, map, and listings. Moreover, it utilizes color and typography to emphasize essential information and actions. On the other hand, Craigslist applies proximity ineffectively and creates a jumbled and perplexing interface. It does not arrange elements properly and uses inconsistent spacing that makes the layout appear disorderly. Furthermore, it does not group related elements or separate unrelated elements. In addition, it implements color and typography randomly and without much success. Benefits of using proximity in UI design. Using proximity in your UI design can bring you many advantages, from improving readability and comprehension to enhancing usability and engagement. Proximity can also make your interface more user-friendly and intuitive, as well as more persuasive and compelling. This can result in increased user satisfaction and loyalty, as well as boosted conversion and retention rates. By using proximity, you can simplify and organize information, making it easier for users to scan and understand. You can also motivate the user to take action and return to your website or app by offering a clear and consistent value proposition. Before beginning a design, take a step back from the visuals and define the hierarchy of the content and the key point you want the user to take away. Once you establish that hierarchy, focus on applying variations in color and contrast, scale, or grouping. After designing with visual hierarchy in mind, step back and see if the design reads as you intended it by testing with target users. When the page's visual hierarchy accurately reflects the importance of different design elements, users easily understand it and can successfully complete tasks, thus gaining trust in the design and the brand.